I was 79 years old the morning my daughter, Lisa, sat across from me at my own kitchen table and spoke to me like I was a confused stranger. It was March 12th, 2022, cold, gray, the kind of Midwest morning where the wind sneaks under the door no matter how well you seal it. I remember the smell of burned coffee, the way my Timex dug into my wrist, and the faint hum of the furnace kicking on. Funny how they said I couldn't remember things. I remembered everything. "You don't need to worry about the bills anymore, Dad," she said, sliding a stack of papers toward me like she was offering a menu. "We're going to simplify things. Doctor said it's for the best." I looked at her, really looked. My own daughter, 48 years old, peach-colored cardigan, hair tied too tightly like she wanted to squeeze the truth out of herself. She avoided my eyes. That was the first sign. "What doctor?" I asked. She gave that little smile, the patronizing kind you reserve for toddlers and doddering old men. "Dr. Pearson, remember, we talked about this last week." "No," I said. "You talked, I listened." She froze a little at that, and for the first time I saw something flicker behind her eyes, panic maybe, guilt, something sour and quick. The papers she slid my way weren't bills. They were forms, bank authorizations, account transfers, a medical power of attorney already filled out with her name. Every line meant one thing: she planned to take control, and maybe more. "Sign them, Dad," she said, all sugar on the outside, steel underneath. "It's just to make things easier." "You think I don't know what these are?" I asked, holding up the papers so they shook just a bit in my hand. Not because I was weak, because I was furious. Her jaw clenched. "You're forgetting things. You left the stove on last week." "That was you rushing out after making your tea," I snapped. She blinked, hard, like that detail wasn't supposed to exist. That's the moment I knew. She thought I was slipping. She thought the little pauses in my speech, the times I rubbed my forehead when my arthritis got bad, the way I sometimes repeated a story because I liked telling it. She thought all of that meant she could strip me clean without anyone noticing. And she'd planned it for months, probably since my second fall in 2021. But here's what she forgot. Old men have been underestimated since the dawn of this country. And I didn't survive 32 years at the GM plant, 2 layoffs, a divorce, and a heart attack just to be conned by my own blood. When she stood up to get us some tea, I leaned forward and said quietly, "Lisa, you're making a mistake." She turned, a mug in her hand, steam rising. "Dad, you're confused." "No," I said, "I'm wide awake." Her eyes narrowed. She wasn't used to me pushing back. And that's when it hit me, this wasn't sudden. This wasn't desperation. This was a plan, something she'd been building step by step, assuming I was too foggy to notice. But I remembered the December phone call when she asked about my IRA. I remembered the January afternoon she insisted on helping with my mail. I remembered the February visit where she took pictures of my medication bottles. I remembered every single piece of her puzzle. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that while she was planning her little takeover, I was planning something too. I slid the papers back toward her. "Not today." Her face darkened like a storm rolling over an empty field. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." "You'd be surprised what I can still do," I said. And I meant it. Because while she thought she'd caught me at my weakest, she didn't know I'd already taken the first step. The night before, lying awake with my joints screaming and the house settling around me, something had tugged at my gut, a warning, and I acted on it. I made a phone call, a very important one. But I won't tell you who I called, not yet. You'll understand soon enough. Lisa gathered the papers, forced a brittle smile and said, "We'll try again later, Dad." "Oh, we will," I said. "But the next time we sit at this table, things will be different." She didn't understand what I meant. Not then. But she would. Because this was the morning everything cracked. The moment she showed her hand. And the beginning of the long road that led me to take back what was mine. The road that brought me here, to tell you how I turned the tables. And trust me, the best part hasn't even started yet. You know, before everything went to hell, my life wasn't half bad for a man pushing 80. I wasn't running marathons or climbing ladders anymore, but I had my routines, sturdy, comforting pieces of an old life I'd built with these two hands. Every morning I got up around 6:15, same as I did for 32 years at the GM plant in Kansas City. Old habits don't die, they just creak a little. I'd shuffle into the kitchen, turn on that beat-up Mr. Coffee machine, white plastic turned yellow with age, and fry 2 eggs in my cast-iron skillet, the one Martha bought back in '78. The house would fill with that warm, familiar smell of butter and pepper, and for a moment I felt young again. You'd think after Martha passed in 2015, the house would have gone quiet in a way that crushed me. But it didn't. I kept it alive with small things: Sunday calls with my brother in Ohio, Friday breakfast with Jack Murphy at the Denny's on Maple Street, and my Tuesday walks around the block when my knees allowed. The neighbors knew me as the old man with the Ford F-150 that coughed every time I turned the key, but still ran like a loyal dog. I wasn't lonely, I was settled. That's important for you to understand, because Lisa always told people I was declining, isolated, confused. She painted a picture of me as a fragile man losing himself in the empty spaces of his own home, but that wasn't the truth, not even close. I remember one afternoon, must have been early 2021, Lisa stopped by unannounced, hovering in the doorway like she expected to see me lying on the floor gasping for help. Instead, she found me in the garage, wiping down the old snow blower. "Dad," she said, loud and slow like I was hard of hearing, "you shouldn't be using tools alone." I rolled my eyes. "Lisa, I'm not firing up a chainsaw, I'm cleaning this thing, winter's coming." She stepped closer, arms folded tight. "You forget things sometimes. Last week you called me twice, asking what day it was." I stiffened. It had been one call, and it was because daylight saving time always screwed me up. I hate the damn thing. "I was adjusting my clock," I said, "that's all." But she didn't believe me. Or maybe she didn't want to. Maybe believing I was slipping made her feel justified. You see, after her divorce in 2019, things changed. She stopped being the daughter who hugged me every Thanksgiving, the one who made me a plate at Christmas even when she was tired. She started talking in terms of future planning, long-term care, financial safety nets. She started asking about my accounts more than she asked about my health. At first I chalked it up to stress. Everybody handles heartbreak differently, but the shift in her voice, that was harder to ignore. One Sunday afternoon at the kitchen table, funny how trouble always finds that spot, she asked about my IRA. "How much is left in it, Dad?" she asked, stirring her iced tea like the answer didn't matter. "Enough," I said. "Enough for what?" "For me, that's who it's for." She nodded, but it was the kind of nod people give when they're pretending to agree while calculating something else entirely. Back then, I still trusted her. I still believed she was looking out for me. I even gave her copies of a few old bank statements when she said she wanted to help organize my paperwork. God help me, I thought I was being responsible. "You know," she told me once in early 2022, "if anything ever happened to you, I'd be the one handling things. It's better that I understand what you have." It should have clicked then. It should have sunk in like a weight landing on the chest. But I loved her. And love blinds old men just as easily as it blinds young fools. There was another moment, one I didn't realize mattered until much later. We were grocery shopping at Hy-Vee. I picked up a can of beans, trying to read the sodium content. The print was tiny as hell. "Let me help you," she said, snatching it from my hands before I could say a word. "I can read it," I said. "It's okay, Dad. You don't have to pretend." Pretend, that was the word she used, like I was putting on a play about being competent. I didn't argue. I just watched her place the can in the cart and walk ahead. That's when a small, sharp thought cut through the haze. She thinks she knows better than me now. Maybe she thinks she deserves something from me too. But I pushed that thought aside, because that's what fathers do. We excuse, we forgive, we hope. Looking back, I can see the pattern clear as sunlight on a windshield. The way she started keeping track of my appointments without asking. The way she insisted on driving me everywhere for safety. The way she lingered over my mail like it was hers. She was building a case, a narrative: Dad's declining, Dad's forgetting things, Dad needs support. But there was one more shift, one that changed everything. It was the night I made that phone call. The night before she pushed those papers across my kitchen table. My knees were aching from the cold and I couldn't sleep. The house groaned around me, the way old houses do, and something inside my chest felt wrong. A heaviness, a knowing, like the past year of strange comments and suspicious help finally clicked into place. That's when I reached for my phone. It was 11:42 p.m. The person who answered changed everything. But I'm not ready to tell you who that was, not yet. You need to understand the fall before you can appreciate the climb back up. And trust me, the fall was steep. You'd think the first crack would be something obvious, money missing, a forged signature, a strange withdrawal. But real betrayal, the kind that takes root in a family, starts quiet. So quiet you almost convince yourself you imagined it. For me, it began with my mail. It was late January, cold enough that every breath felt like chewing glass. I walked out onto the porch, my flannel jacket pulled tight, and found the mailbox empty. Strange, since my Social Security letter always came around the same week. 2 hours later, right after I'd poured myself a cup of Folgers, the front door opened without a knock. "Dad," Lisa stepped in, coat zipped up to her chin, cheeks flushed from the wind. "I picked up your mail so you wouldn't slip on the ice." She held a stack of envelopes, thick ones, official-looking ones. Something inside me twitched, a little spark like an electrical short. "You could have knocked," I said. She laughed in that airy, dismissive way that grated on me more every time I heard it. "Dad, it's me. I have a key." I didn't remember giving her a key. Or maybe I did. Back in 2017 after my surgery, I wasn't sure anymore, and that uncertainty was exactly what she preyed on. She sorted through the mail too quickly, like she already knew what she was looking for. That same twitch in my gut turned into a sour knot. "What's in there?" I asked. "Oh, just bills and junk." But I'd seen a familiar return address as she shuffled, Midwest Federal Credit Union, my IRA custodian. Before I could say anything, she slipped that envelope to the bottom of the pile, almost underneath a grocery flyer. My jaw clenched. "Give me that one," I said. She froze just a fraction too long. "Which one?" "The one from the credit union." She forced a smile. "Dad, it's nothing, just a statement." "That's why I want it." When she handed it over, her fingers hesitated, held on half a second too long. That was the moment I knew she'd been intercepting my mail. Maybe not every day, but enough. It was the first crack, and once you see a crack, you can't unsee it. A week later came the second one. I was at the Hy-Vee pharmacy picking up my usual medication, lisinopril, gabapentin, and that damn cholesterol pill that tasted like chalk, when the pharmacist, a kid named Aaron with spiky hair, scanned my file and frowned. "Mr. Callahan," he said, "your daughter picked up your refill yesterday." I blinked. No, she didn't. He rotated the screen. "Says here, picked up by Lisa Callahan, signed at 4:42 p.m. I stared at the signature. It wasn't mine. It wasn't even close to hers. "Well," I said slowly, "that's interesting." He lowered his voice. "If you want me to put a note requiring only your pickup, I can." I nodded. "Do that." Walking out of that store, the winter air bit into my lungs. I didn't zip my jacket, didn't even feel the cold. All I could think about was that signature. Someone was gathering excuses, evidence, little bits of proof that I wasn't capable anymore. The pharmacy signature was just another piece. But the third crack, the one that really scared me, came in February. Lisa had invited me to dinner at her house in Overland Park. Normally, she made something simple: pasta, store-bought chicken. But that night she went all out. Pork roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, the works. When someone cooks too much food, it's either love or guilt. We sat in her warm dining room, the walls covered with those framed quotes she loves. Live, laugh, love. Family first, the whole Hallmark collection. The table was too spotless, her smile too tight. Halfway through the meal she said, too casually, "Dad, I talked to Dr. Pearson again." I set down my fork. "About what?" You, she said, voice soft. I told him about your memory slips. I haven't had memory slips. You repeated the same story twice last week. Lots of people repeat stories. And you forgot where you put your keys. They were in my jacket pocket. She sighed as though the weight of being my daughter was unbearable. Dad, you need to stop fighting this. You're getting older, it's okay. I stared at her. The room smelled of rosemary and roasted meat, but all I could smell was dishonesty. What did he say? I asked. He said we should consider some cognitive testing. Ice crawled up my spine. You mean a dementia evaluation? It's just precautionary, she said. I'm trying to help. Help who? I asked quietly. Me or you? Her jaw twitched. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. That night back home, I sat in my recliner staring at the dark TV screen. My hands were trembling, not from age but from anger, from fear, from the realization that my own daughter was building a case against me piece by piece. And then the memory hit me, the phone call I'd made, the one at 11:42 p.m., the one I wasn't ready to tell anyone about. But I will tell you this much. That call was the turning point, the line between losing everything and fighting back. And the person who answered, they didn't just listen. They believed me. And they had an idea, one that scared me at first, one that required patience, silence, playing small, playing confused. Letting Lisa think she had me exactly where she wanted me. Because sometimes the strongest thing an old man can do is pretend to be weak. And God help me, I was ready to play the part. You ever feel the ground go out from under you, not because you tripped, but because someone you trusted kicked it out? That's what happened to me on April 2nd, 2022, at exactly 3:17 in the afternoon. I remember the time because the sun was hitting the kitchen window at that perfect angle where you can see every speck of dust floating in the air. Funny the details your mind grabs when your heart is about to split open. It was a Saturday. I'd just come back from Denny's with Jack Murphy. We'd spent half an hour arguing about whether the Royals had any chance that season. They didn't. Jack won that one. I hung up my coat, fed the cat, and shuffled over to the kitchen table where my mail was waiting. Only, I hadn't heard the mailbox open. And I sure as hell hadn't been outside long enough for the mailman to show up twice. I froze. There was a stack of envelopes sitting in the dead center of the table, straightened, neat, like someone had curated it. My stomach tightened. I flipped through the envelopes, water bill, circular, a postcard from the VA clinic. And then I saw it, an envelope from Midwest Federal Credit Union. Thicker than usual. I opened it, slowly. My hands weren't shaking from age. They were shaking because some terrible instinct inside me already knew what was coming. The statement wasn't for my regular IRA. It was for an early distribution request. My name, my account number, and a signature that wasn't mine. There it was, bold as sin. Requesting full distribution, $148,212.87. Everything inside me went quiet, not numb, not confused, just quiet like the world held its breath. I whispered, no, 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 no. I turned the page, and that's when my heart dropped straight into my shoes. Authorized by Lisa Callahan, power of attorney on file. But I had never signed a POA giving her that authority. My throat went dry, my vision blurred for a second. I clutched the table to steady myself. Then another detail slammed into me like a truck. Distribution processed March 29th, 2022. 3 days earlier. My daughter, my flesh and blood, had drained my entire retirement account while I was sitting in the same house, drinking Folgers and frying eggs like a damned fool. I sat down hard, the chair scraped the tile. The house felt suddenly too big, too cold, too empty. My ears were ringing. I whispered to no one, she took it, she really took it. And then the anger came, hot, blinding, like someone poured gasoline on a fire inside my chest. My fingers dug into the table so hard I heard a crack in the wood. A noise startled me, a soft creak near the hallway. I turned. Lisa was standing in my doorway. I don't know how long she'd been there. I don't know if she was waiting for me to find the letter. I don't know if she thought I'd be confused or grateful or too broken to react. But the look on her face told me something for certain. She knew exactly what she'd done. "Dad," she said carefully, "you weren't supposed to see that yet." My heart hammered. How did you get a power of attorney?" "It was necessary," she said. Soft voice, fake sympathy, that tone she used whenever she talked to me like I was slipping away. "You've been forgetting things. You left the furnace on for 2 days last month." "That was you," I shouted. "You came over and—" "Dad," she said sharply, like she was scolding a child, "listen to yourself." I stood so fast my chair almost toppled. "You stole my life savings." "I didn't steal anything," she said. "I protected it. By taking it." She stepped closer, hands out, palms up. "You wouldn't understand the financial implications. Taxes, risk. You were making bad decisions. You needed someone to step in. You stepped in to take everything." I yelled, my voice cracking, my chest heaving. She didn't flinch. "Dad, this is for the best. You can't live here alone anymore. The credit union agreed to transfer management to me." My jaw clenched so tight I thought a tooth would crack. "Why?" "Because you're declining," she said gently. "Because you need help. Because you're not the man you used to be." Her voice was soft, but her eyes, God help me, those eyes were cold. I stared at her, my hands shaking, uncontrolled now. The betrayal was so thick in the room it was suffocating. "I remember everything," I said. "Every lie, every little move, every time you took my mail, every phone call you made pretending to be me." Her lips parted just a little, surprised. She hadn't expected me to connect the dots. "Dad," she whispered, "you're confused." "No," I said, taking one slow step toward her. "I'm awake." She backed up a half step, barely noticeable, but I saw it. She knew the game wasn't over. And for the first time, she realized I might still have some fight left in me. "I'm calling the credit union," I said. "You won't be able to fix this," she replied. "The paperwork is done." My jaw trembled with rage. "You're my daughter. And I'm doing what's necessary." That was the moment, right there, that something inside me snapped. Love twisted into something sharp and dangerous. The world tilted around me. The betrayal burned into my memory so deeply I could taste it, metallic and bitter like blood on the tongue. My voice was calm when I finally spoke, too calm. "You made a mistake," I said, "a big one." She folded her arms. "You can't stop this." I nodded slowly. "Maybe not today." I turned away. I didn't trust myself to look at her without collapsing or exploding. But inside, a storm had started. A quiet, focused, deadly storm. Because I finally understood something important. Lisa thought she'd broken me. Instead, she'd woken me up. And I wasn't alone. Not after the phone call I'd made. Not after the plan we'd started forming. And now that she'd crossed the line, I was going to finish what I'd begun. I won't lie to you, after that day, after seeing that forged signature and hearing my daughter justify stealing my entire retirement, something inside me collapsed. It wasn't dramatic like in the movies. No screaming, no smashing plates. It was quieter than that, like a house settling after a long winter storm, but the damage was real. The first 3 weeks after April 2nd were the lowest I've ever sunk in my life. Lower than when Martha died. Lower than when the plant laid off half my shift in '91. Lower than when my own heart gave out on me and I woke up in a hospital bed hooked to a dozen tubes. You can survive a lot in nearly 8 decades on this earth, but betrayal by your own child, it hollows you out in a way nothing else can. I stopped going to Denny's with Jack, stopped walking the block on Tuesdays, stopped opening the blinds in the morning. Some days I didn't even bother turning on the lights. The house sat dark except for the glow from the TV, and half the time I wasn't even watching, just listening to the voices so I didn't have to hear my own thoughts. Lisa came by twice a week, sometimes more. She let herself in with that key I'd stupidly given her years ago. "Dad," she'd say, turning on the lights without asking, "the house smells musty. Are you bathing regularly? Or, you missed your cardiology appointment. I had to reschedule it. Or the worst one, you're not safe here alone. We need to talk about assisted living. Every time she spoke, she layered the words with this syrupy concern that made my blood boil, like she hadn't gutted me and expected me to thank her for the surgery. And the saddest part, I didn't fight her, not at first, not during those weeks. Because grief doesn't just break you, it slows you down, makes you heavy, makes you doubt everything, even your own memory. More than once that month, I sat there in my recliner whispering to myself, maybe she's right. Maybe I am slipping. Maybe this is just what getting old looks like. There was one morning, I remember it too clearly, when I couldn't find my wallet. I tore the living room apart looking for it. I was sweating, out of breath, heart pounding. Panic crawled up my spine like cold fingers. When I finally found it in the pantry of all places, I don't even know how it got there. I sat down on the floor, leaning against the shelves, and cried like a man who'd lost everything. That's when the doubt really swallowed me whole. Because what if she wasn't lying about my memory? What if the missing items and mixed-up dates were just me falling apart? But then something happened that snapped my mind back into focus. It was April 19th, cold, windy, bit of rain in the air. I was sitting in the living room wrapped in Martha's old quilt when I heard the front door open. "Dad," Lisa called. She always called out like that, pretending she was being polite when she was just checking if I was conscious. "Back here," I muttered. She walked in holding 2 grocery bags. "You need fruits and vegetables. You're not eating right." She reached into one of the bags and pulled out a small orange prescription bottle. "My prescription bottle. Found this tucked behind the couch," she said. "You missed 3 days again." I stared at her again. She set it on the coffee table and sighed. "Dad, this isn't working. You can't manage things anymore. I called Brookside Manor. They have an opening next month." That cut deeper than anything she'd done before. Brookside Manor, a memory care facility, the kind of place where they take away your keys, your stove, your independence, your dignity. "No," I said, quiet but firm. "You don't have a choice," she replied. Something inside me snapped back to life, a spark, a memory. I grabbed the pill bottle, shook it, listened to the sound. "Too full." "Funny," I said. "It looks like I haven't taken any pills at all this week." She hesitated, half a second, barely noticeable, but hesitation is enough to reveal guilt. "You keep forgetting," she murmured. "No," I said, "I think you've been hiding them." Her face changed, just a flicker, but it was enough to wake the part of me that had been sleeping under the weight of heartbreak. For the first time since she drained my IRA, I didn't feel small, or broken, or old. I felt angry. "You need help," she said, stepping toward me. "You can't keep refusing it." "And you need money," I said, my voice low. "Yours or mine, you don't care which." She blinked. That told me everything. She dropped the subject, left the bags on the table, and walked out, slamming the door just hard enough to let me know she was losing patience. After she left, I sat there in the quiet house listening to the furnace hum. The anger simmered in my chest, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless anymore. Because I remembered something important. I wasn't alone. That phone call I'd made at 11:42 p.m., I'd almost forgotten it in the fog of grief and confusion, but now it came back to me clear as day. The man on the other end of the line had said, "Mr. Callahan, if what you're saying is true, we can help you, but you'll need to let her think she's winning." And God help me, that's exactly what I started doing. I forced myself to slump a little more around Lisa. Let a few sentences trail off. Asked her to repeat things I already understood. Pretended to lose track of dates. Let her believe she was right. Because sometimes playing weak is the only way left to get strong again. And the person I'd called that night, the one who believed me, was about to step back into the picture. But first, I had to hit rock bottom. And I was almost there. You ever hit a point so low that the only direction left is up? That was me by late April, nearly a month after Lisa drained my IRA and started pushing the idea of Brookside Manor like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. Thing is, she wasn't trying to save me. She was trying to get me out of the way. And the more I let myself sink into that quiet, heavy despair, the more I realized, if I didn't fight smart, I wasn't going to have a life worth saving. What I needed was an ally, someone who didn't see me as a burden or a walking wallet, someone who believed an old man could still tell the truth, and as it turned out, I already had one. A week after that awful day with the pill bottle around 9:30 on a windy Wednesday night, I got a knock on the door. 3 taps, slow, deliberate, and I knew that rhythm. I'd heard it 1,000 times before. I opened the door and there he was, Tom Bentley, my old neighbor from down the block. 66, retired IT guy, still wearing those plaid shirts tucked in too tight, hair thinning like a lawn in August. He wasn't family, but he'd always been the kind of man who helped change a tire without being asked. "Evenin', Ed," he said, stepping inside and shutting the door behind him. I blinked at him. "What are you doing here this late?" He held up his phone. "Got your message." My chest tightened, because Tom was the one I called at 11:42 p.m. that night. Not a lawyer, not the police. Tom. Why? Because he was the only person I trusted enough to say the words out loud. "I think my daughter's trying to take everything I have." He took off his coat and sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same damn table where Lisa had slid those forms across like she was handing me a death sentence. "All right," he said, leaning forward, "tell me everything." And so I did. The mail, the pharmacy, the fake concerns, the bank statement, the POA I never signed. Tom listened without blinking, his brow furrowing deeper with every detail. "Jesus, Ed," he whispered, "this is bad." "No kidding," I said. He pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "You said you got that envelope in the mail. Did she know you saw it?" "She was standing right behind me when I opened it." He let out a long exhale. "Then she's gonna accelerate whatever plan she's running." I nodded. "I know." "And you need help," he added. "I called you." "No," he said gently, "I mean professional help." I stiffened. "I'm not going to the cops with no proof." "Good," he said, surprising me, "because they won't do a damn thing yet. You need evidence. Solid, verifiable, time-stamped evidence." I looked at him, really looked. "You've done this before, haven't you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "My aunt," he said quietly. "Her caregiver cleaned out her checking account and tried to put her in a facility. Took 6 months to catch the bastard." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small black device, about the size of a thumb drive. "What's that?" I asked. "A recorder," he said, voice activated, high quality. I sat back. "Tom, I'm not spying on my daughter." He placed it gently on the table. "She's stealing from you, Ed. She wants to declare you incompetent. Once she does, you won't be able to fight her at all." That hit me hard, because I'd seen men lose control of their own lives before. Coworkers at the plant who had strokes, veterans who lost decision-making rights, neighbors whose families swooped in like vultures dressed as caretakers. Tom's voice softened. "You don't have to like it, you just have to survive it." I swallowed. "What do I do?" He leaned in. "First, stop arguing with her. Don't resist anything she suggests. Don't question her. Let her think you're declining faster than she expected." I shook my head. "That goes against everything in me." "I know," he said, "but you're not dealing with a daughter anymore. You're dealing with someone who thinks she's smarter than you. Someone who's already stolen nearly $150,000. The words settled like lead in my stomach. "What's the second thing?" I asked. "Next time she brings up the money or the house or that care facility, you let her talk. Let her brag. Let her explain her reasons. The recorder will handle the rest." "You think she'll incriminate herself?" Tom gave a grim smile. "People who think they're winning always talk too much." The next ally arrived by accident. 2 days later, I went to my routine checkup at the VA clinic. One of the appointments Lisa didn't know about. My primary doctor, an old Marine named Dr. Samuel Wright, took one look at me and said, "Jesus, Ed, you look like hell." "Just tired," I lied. He wasn't buying it. He tapped his pen on the desk twice, a habit he had when he was thinking harder than he wanted me to notice. "You eating all right sleeping?" he asked. I shrugged some. Then he asked the question that cracked me open. "Is someone giving you a hard time at home?" I stared at the wall, at the poster about fall prevention, at the little VA emblem. Anywhere but his face. "Tell me the truth, son," he said. "Son? At 79, nobody calls you son." So I told him, not everything, but enough for his expression to turn from concern to furious. "Financial exploitation is abuse," he said quietly, "and you're not the first veteran I've seen who's gone through this." "I don't need pity," I muttered. "You don't need pity," he replied. "You need backup." He slid a card across the desk. Simple black lettering. Local legal aid for seniors and veterans. A woman named Margaret Chen, a specialist in elder rights cases. "She won't charge you a dime," he said, "and she's a bulldog." "I'm not ready for lawyers." "You don't have to be," he said. "Just call her when it's time, she'll listen." I nodded slowly and tucked the card into my shirt pocket. Two allies now. Both watching my back. Both believing me. And Lisa had no idea. When I got home that afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table, the crime scene basically, and looked around the house. My house. The one I'd paid off working 12-hour shifts at the plant. The one where Martha baked pies every Thanksgiving. The one where I'd held Lisa when she scraped her knee, where she opened her Christmas presents, where she learned to read. And here she was now, trying to put me away like an old snowblower in the garage. I pulled out the recorder Tom had given me, turned it over in my hands, cold, smooth, quiet. I didn't want to use it, but I knew I would. Because the first step of taking back my life wasn't fighting. It was gathering. Gathering evidence. Gathering allies. Gathering strength. Gathering the pieces of the man I used to be. And for the first time in weeks, the darkness around me didn't feel like a grave. It felt like a place to sharpen tools. It's a strange thing preparing to trap your own daughter. There's a guilt to it, a sickness that crawls up your throat even when you know you're the one being hunted. But by early May, I'd learned something important. Love doesn't mean letting someone bury you. So I began the setup. Not with violence, not with shouting, but with quiet, with stillness, with patience. The kind of patience only an old man who spent a lifetime tightening bolts and waiting on slow supervisors can pull off. The first step was simple. I stopped resisting her. Lisa came by one Thursday morning with a clipboard, an actual clipboard, and a stack of brochures from Brookside Manor, and instead of bristling or arguing, I just nodded. "You're probably right," I told her, letting my voice waver just a hair. "Maybe I am getting worse." Her eyes lit up. That hurt worse than the IRA statement. "Dad," she said, her voice dripping with relief, "this is the best decision for you, for both of us." Both of us. There it was. The tell. I nodded again, like a tired old houseplant grateful for water. "Maybe you could explain it all to me again," I asked. That recorder Tom gave me. Already in my shirt pocket, voice activated, the little LED covered with a strip of electrical tape. Lisa talked for 43 uninterrupted minutes. She talked about managing my finances more efficiently, handling the account transfers herself from now on, taking steps to protect me legally, ensuring the house would be sold smoothly to cover care costs, taking responsibility for my remaining assets. Each phrase was a nail she hammered deeper into the coffin she thought she was building for me, and every nail was recorded. At one point she even said, "Dad, you don't even need to worry about signing anything anymore. I've already taken care of it." My blood ran cold hearing that, but I nodded. Good, sweetheart, I trust you." If she could smell the lie on my breath, she didn't show it. The second part of the setup took place over several days. Little things, small performances. I started repeating questions I already knew the answers to. Pretended to lose my train of thought mid-sentence. Left the TV on in the bedroom by mistake. Put the salt shaker in the fridge once, though to be fair, I actually used to do that on accident back in '98. Lisa wrote everything down. Every slip. Every hesitation. Every sign of decline. And every visit, she talked just a little more freely. A little more boldly. One afternoon, while she microwaved soup in my kitchen, she said, "You know, once you're settled in at Brookside, I'll finally have time to breathe, to get myself on my feet again." I swallowed hard. "Financially, you mean?" She didn't even flinch. "Well, yeah." I walked into the hallway for a second to hide the anger burning in my face. The recorder caught every word. The third part of the setup was harder. It required me to do something I'd never done before in my 79 years. I had to make myself small. I started asking Lisa to help with simple things. Turning on the coffee maker. Reading mail. Calling the pharmacy. She believed every second of it. One morning she said, "Dad, you're doing the right thing letting me take charge." I smiled weakly. "You've always been the smart one." She patted my shoulder. "I'll make sure everything turns out exactly how it should." I bet she meant that. Just not in the way I did. But the fourth part, that's where the real work began. I called Margaret Chen, the attorney Dr. Wright recommended. She answered on the second ring. "Mr. Callahan, I've been expecting your call." There was something steady in her voice, solid, like a stone wall you could lean on. "I'm dealing with a situation involving my daughter," I said quietly. She didn't interrupt, didn't gasp, didn't pity me. Instead she asked, "Do you have documentation?" "I'm gathering it," I said. "Good," she replied. "Do not confront her, do not accuse her, keep collecting, and when you're ready, bring it all to me." I hesitated. "How will I know when I'm ready?" "When she makes her boldest move," Margaret answered. "That's when people like her make their biggest mistakes." Her words stuck to my ribs like warm stew. Over the next week, I built the web. Tom came by 3 nights in a row, helping me set up. An updated medical log. A binder of bank statements. A timeline of every suspicious event. Copies of prescription records. A folder of text messages from Lisa. He handled the computer stuff. I handled the memories. "You're sharp as hell," Tom said on the third night. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I didn't cry, but something inside me loosened. Then came the moment I knew the trap was almost ready. It was May 14th, warm day, sun pouring through the windows like melted gold. Lisa showed up early, hair pulled back tight, lips pressed into a thin, determined line. "Dad," she said, "Brookside Manor called. They can take you starting next month." My stomach nodded, but I kept my face slack. "If that's what you think is best." She let out a breath. "It is." I nodded. "What about my accounts?" "Oh," she said lightly, "I've already arranged everything. You won't have to worry about a thing." My fingers tightened around the arms of my chair. "In the house?" I asked. "Well," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, "once you're settled, we'll move forward with selling it. It's worth more than you realize." It took everything in me not to spit fire. Instead, I asked softly, "Can you explain the steps to me, slowly?" She smiled. She sat down. She explained everything. Every lie. Every illegal decision. Every forged step she'd taken. And the recorder got all of it. Every last syllable. I felt something shift in that moment, not in her but in me. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was preparation. Because the next step wasn't gathering. It was springing the trap. And I was ready. You ever feel your heartbeat slow right before something big, like your body is trying to steady you for the blow you're about to land? That was me on the morning of June 2nd, 2022, sitting in the lobby of Midwest Federal Credit Union in Overland Park with Tom next to me and the folder, my folder, on my lap. The air inside that building always smelled like carpet cleaner and printer toner. Cold, sterile, the opposite of home. Every time I'd come in over the years, the tellers greeted me like I'd been banking there since Eisenhower, which wasn't far off. But this time, nobody knew why I was really there. Not yet. Tom leaned toward me. You sure you want to do this today? I nodded. If I don't do it now, I'll lose the nerve. He rested a hand on my arm. Just stick to the plan. And oh, what a plan it was. The day before, Lisa had shown up at my house with a printout from Brookside Manor, smiling like she'd won a prize. They accepted everything, she said. Your finances look stable, the facility fees covered. She said it casually, my life savings in her hands like it was nothing, and I nodded, weak, confused, grateful, just like she expected. Meanwhile, the recorder in my shirt pocket captured every word. But that wasn't the turning point. The real moment came when she handed me a blue folder labeled Property Liquidation Plan, CALLAHAN Residence. My house, my memories, my life, spread out in bullet points she'd typed herself. She leaned in close and said, Dad, once we move you, we need to put the house on the market within 30 days. It's worth more if it sells before the end of summer. That was her fatal mistake. Because the moment she said 30 days, the calendar inside my head clicked. I realized I had time. I realized she thought the battle was over. And I realized I could finally flip the board. So here we were. Credit union. Mid-morning. Sun warming the windows. I had my binder. My recorder. My ally. And inside that building was the one person who could legally unravel everything Lisa had forged. At 9:14 a.m., a teller with glasses and a bright red blouse said, Mr. Callahan, Mr. Price will see you now. Jeffrey Price, the senior fraud investigator. If Lisa was the spark that burned my life down, Jeffrey was the man holding the fire extinguisher. Tom and I followed her to a small office with glass walls. Jeffrey stood as soon as we entered, a tall man, early 50s, graying beard, stance like someone who coached Little League. Mr. Callahan, he said warmly, shaking my hand, what can I do for you today? I sat down slowly, deliberately, like an old man who could crumble at any second. Jeffrey, I said, I'm here because someone took my money. He nodded gently. Your account shows a full distribution in March, authorized under power of attorney. My jaw tightened. I didn't authorize any power of attorney. He hesitated, just long enough to tell me he'd suspected something already. Do you have documentation? I placed the binder on his desk, thick, organized, every page labeled, every date aligned. He opened it. The first page. My signature from 2009. The second page. The forged signature from the POA form Lisa submitted. The third. Comparative overlay Tom had printed showing they didn't match. Jeffrey adjusted his glasses. This looks problematic, he muttered. That's one way to put it, I said. He flipped the page. Recordings transcripts typed by Tom. Notarized by the lady at UPS on 137th Street, who didn't ask questions. Recordings of Lisa saying, You won't need to sign anything anymore. The money is better handled by me. You're not capable of managing your accounts. We'll sell the house once you're in Brookside. Jeffrey looked up slowly, a new seriousness in his eyes. How long has this been happening? He asked. Since January, I said, maybe earlier. And you're certain you did not sign a power of attorney? I remember everything, I said, everything. He believed me. I could see it in the way his shoulders changed, how his professional mask shifted from polite to protective. Mr. Callahan, he said carefully, your daughter claimed you had cognitive issues. I leaned forward, then test me. We spent 20 minutes on memory questions, sequences, problem solving. questions my VA doctor had prepared me for just in case. I aced them. Every last one. Jeffrey nodded slowly. You're sharper than half my staff. Tom chuckled, told you. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Jeffrey closed the binder and said, Mr. Callahan, would you like to file a formal fraud complaint against your daughter? I felt something tighten in my throat, a lump of pain, of disappointment, of love twisted into something unrecognizable. I didn't speak for a few seconds. Then I whispered, yes. He exhaled. Once we file this, things will move quickly. She may try to challenge you. I'm ready. Good, because she'll be contacted for a statement, and she won't like it. Tom leaned back, arms crossed. Let her come. Jeffrey began typing. Fast, loud, keys clicking like nails being hammered into a coffin someone else built. But we weren't done. Not even close. Last question, Jeffrey said, looking me dead in the eye. Do you wish to seize the funds she transferred? I swallowed every penny. And do you want to revoke her authority? My voice didn't waver. I never gave her any. He nodded and clicked one final button. The screen beeped. A form printed. He slid it toward me. Sign here, Mr. Callahan. Once this is filed, financial control returns to you. She can't touch a dime. My hand shook slightly as I picked up the pen, not from weakness, but from the weight of the moment. I signed. Edward Callahan. Strong, steady, mine. Jeffrey stood. I'll initiate the reversal immediately. You'll get an official notice by Monday. For the first time in months, I felt my lungs fill all the way, felt the strength in my legs, felt myself standing a little taller. But I should have known the universe wasn't going to let this happen quietly. Because at 10:27 a.m., as Tom and I walked out of that office, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Lisa. 12 missed calls. 3 voicemails. 1 text. Dad, what did you do? The storm had officially begun. And I wasn't running from it. I was walking straight into it. If you've never heard a phone scream, let me tell you, mine did that day. The buzzing didn't stop, not for a single minute, from the moment Tom and I left the credit union parking lot. By the time we reached my driveway, my pocket felt like it had an angry wasp trapped inside it. When I finally answered, Lisa didn't even say hello. Dad, she snapped, voice trembling with rage. What did you tell the bank? I sat down in my recliner, the springs groaning under me. I told them the truth. You're confused, she said immediately, her favorite line. No, I said softly, not anymore. She went silent. Not long, just long enough for me to picture her standing in the middle of her living room, fingers digging into her phone, realizing her entire scheme had just been yanked out from under her. You can't, she started. You forged my signature, I interrupted. She inhaled sharply. Dad, I signed what you meant to sign, you just. Stop, I said, and my voice must have carried something she wasn't expecting because she actually shut up. Everything you've said, everything you've done, it's all been recorded. Another silence. Heavier, sharper, like the moment right before a car crash. You're lying, she whispered. The bank has it, I said. They've filed a fraud report. Her breath hitched. Dad, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to ruin my life. I closed my eyes. God help me, that line cracked something in me, because there were years, decades, when protecting her felt like the only thing I was meant to do, but I wasn't protecting my daughter anymore. I was protecting myself from her. You should have thought about that, I said, before you stole mine. She burst into tears. Real ones or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. You can't do this to your own child. I let out a slow, shaking breath. Lisa, you already did it to your parent. And then she ended the call. The next morning came the fallout. At 8:12 a.m. sharp, a white car rolled into my driveway, county plates, clipboards, the whole government presence. I watched through the curtains as 2 women climbed out, one older, one young, both wearing badges. Adult Protective Services. Tom had warned me this could happen once the fraud complaint hit the system. And now here they were, two strangers deciding whether I was competent enough to manage my own life. I opened the door before they knocked. "Mr. Callahan," the older one asked, adjusting her glasses. "Yes, ma'am." "I'm Ms. Gardner. This is Ms. Lopez. We received a report of possible cognitive decline and financial mismanagement." My chest tightened. "Report from who?" They didn't answer. They didn't have to. "Lisa." I stepped aside. "Come in." Tom arrived 5 minutes later. He'd insisted on being close in case things got ugly. The APS workers sat at my kitchen table, the new battleground of my life, and started their questions. "Do you know today's date? Who is the current president? Have you paid your recent bills? Do you know your monthly income?" I answered them all, calm, steady, accurate. Ms. Gardner nodded. "Your responses are solid, Mr. Callahan." "Thank you. But your daughter expressed concerns that you're forgetting things." I forced a tired sigh. "Ms. Gardner, I'm 79. I forget where I put my glasses sometimes. That doesn't make me incompetent." She gave a small smile. "Fair enough." Then I slid the binder toward her. The same binder from the bank. The one Tom had organized like a legal missile. "Here's what I haven't forgotten," I said quietly. She flipped the first page. Then the second. Then the transcript of Lisa's words. Her expression shifted from professional neutrality to something colder. "Sharper." "Mr. Callahan," she said slowly, "did your daughter really say all this?" "Yes, ma'am, it's recorded." Tom leaned forward, and the bank is already processing a fraud reversal. The younger worker, Ms. Lopez, looked stunned. "This is significant evidence." Ms. Gardner closed the binder carefully, almost respectfully. "Mr. Callahan," she said, "I want you to hear this clearly. You are not the problem here." I swallowed hard. "Thank you." "We will be filing our own report," she continued. "Your daughter may lose any authority she attempted to claim." A wave of relief washed through me, but it was mixed with something else. Sadness, because this wasn't victory, not yet. This was just truth being recognized by someone who didn't know either of us. Before APS left, Ms. Gardner paused at the door. "If your daughter tries to contact you in anger," she said, "call us immediately, and call your attorney." "My attorney?" "Yes, Ms. Margaret Chen. She's already been notified by the credit union." I let out a long, slow breath. Margaret was now part of the storm, too. That afternoon, Lisa showed up. She didn't knock. She didn't ease into it. She stormed through the door with her face red, and her jaw clenched so tight I thought she'd break a tooth. "How could you do this?" she shouted. "You called APS, you called the bank, you lied about me." "I told the truth," I said. "You're ruining everything." Her hands were shaking, not with fear but with fury. "I was trying to help you. You're too old to be on your own." "You weren't helping," I said quietly. "You were taking." She paced the living room, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't steal anything. I protected your money. You drained it. I managed IT. And forged my name." She froze. Dead still. Her eyes flicked to the binder sitting on the coffee table. Then to my shirt pocket, where, God bless Tom, the recorder sat blinking red. "You recorded me," she whispered. "Yes." "How could you?" "How could you?" I asked. She didn't answer. For the first time, she didn't have a script. Didn't have a justification. Didn't have control. Her hands fell limp at her sides. Her voice cracked. "Dad, please don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm just letting the truth come out." She choked on a sob, then turned and walked out, slow at first, then faster, like the house itself had become unbearable. The door slammed. The walls shook. And so did I. Because even though she'd betrayed me, even though she'd tried to throw my life away like an old pair of boots, she was still my daughter. And revenge isn't clean. It's not triumphant. It's not painless. It's messy and heavy, and it costs something you don't get back. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Margaret called later that evening with a simple sentence. Mr. Callahan, the county wants a hearing. A hearing. In court. Where the truth would be laid out for everyone to see. Where Lisa would have to answer for every word she'd said, every paper she'd forged, every dollar she'd taken. I hung up the phone and sat in the dim living room, staring at the dark window. Outside, the wind was changing. Inside, I was changing with it. Because the next step wasn't the unraveling. It was the reckoning. The courthouse in Johnson County isn't grand or historic or anything like that. It's a squat, beige building that always reminded me of an overgrown shoebox. I'd driven past it 100 times and never imagined I'd be sitting inside one of its hearing rooms, my entire life laid out like evidence in a crime drama. But on June 27, 2022, that's exactly where I was. Room 214. Cold air conditioning. Hard wooden benches. A faint smell of old coffee and floor wax. Tom sat behind me, solid, quiet, a kind of presence you don't appreciate until you're the one standing in front of a judge feeling the weight of 80 years on your shoulders. And beside me, sharp navy suit, black notebook in hand, was Margaret Chen. Just speak clearly, she whispered. You've done everything right. I nodded, but my palms still sweated. Old or not, going to court against your own daughter does something to a man's stomach. Then the door opened. Lisa walked in slowly. She looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, emotionally, like the wind had been knocked out of her weeks ago and she still hadn't recovered. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes rimmed red. She didn't look at me. Not once. She sat across the room with her attorney, a tall, slick-haired man who kept whispering things to her that made her jaw clench. The judge entered. We all rose. He gave the usual instructions, formal, detached. But when he glanced down at the file in front of him, I saw a flicker in his eyes, like he already knew this wasn't the usual case. The hearing began with Margaret standing. Your Honor, we are here today because my client, Mr. Edward Callahan, a 79-year-old veteran and longtime resident of this county, was the victim of financial exploitation by his daughter. The judge raised an eyebrow. Proceed. Margaret laid out the facts with the precision of a surgeon. The forged power of attorney. The unauthorized IRA distribution. The hidden mail. The manipulated prescriptions. The Brookside plan. The recordings. Every piece of the web Lisa had woven, Margaret cut through it stitch by stitch. About 20 minutes in, Margaret said, Your Honor, with the court's permission, we will play audio evidence. Lisa's attorney shot up. We object. The judge waved him down. Overruled. I felt my breath catch as Margaret pressed play. Lisa's voice filled the small courtroom. You won't have to sign anything anymore. Once you're in Brookside, I'll sell the house. The money is better managed by me. You're not capable of handling finances. I've already arranged everything. Each sentence echoed off the walls. Each one felt like a hammer to my chest. Not because it hurt anymore, but because it was real now, proven, exposed. Lisa's face crumpled. Her attorney slumped back, defeated. The judge's expression hardened like drying cement. When the audio stopped, the room was painfully silent. Then the judge spoke. Ms. Callahan, do you have anything you wish to say before I make my ruling? Her voice trembled. I was trying to help him. No, I said quietly from my side of the room. You were trying to help yourself. She looked at me then. Really looked. Her eyes searching my face for something. Anger, hatred, softness, familiarity. Maybe even forgiveness. I didn't know what she saw. The judge cleared his throat. Ms. Callahan, your actions constitute fraud, financial exploitation, and abuse under Kansas law. Effective immediately, all authority you claimed over your father is revoked. Lisa's attorney started to speak, but the judge cut him off. Additionally, the funds improperly withdrawn from Mr. Callahan's account will be restored in full pending the bank's reversal process. I felt my eyes sting, but I held steady. Not victory, relief. Like someone let the air back into my lungs after months underwater. The judge wasn't done. And finally, this court recommends that Mr. Callahan's case be reviewed for possible criminal charges. That decision will rest with the district attorney. Lisa covered her mouth, her shoulders shook. I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't gloat. Just watched my daughter come undone by the choices she'd made. The judge adjourned. Everyone stood. People filed out. I stayed sitting. After a minute, I felt someone touch my arm. Margaret. You did well, she said softly. Tom nodded from behind me. Better than well. I swallowed. Thank you, both of you. They stepped away to give me a moment. I'd hoped Lisa would come talk to me before leaving the room, even if it was just to say something small, but she didn't. She walked out with her attorney, head down, shoulders hunched, like a woman carrying her own collapse on her back. And that's when the realization hit me. Revenge doesn't feel like triumph. It feels like standing in a quiet room with everything you saved, but nothing you wanted to sacrifice. That evening back home, I made myself a simple dinner, 2 eggs, toast, black coffee. The house felt warm again, lived in, safe. My IRA balance updated the next morning. $148,212.87 restored. I stared at the number for a long time. Then I closed the laptop. Justice was done. But the wound Lisa left, well, money doesn't stitch that shut. A week later, I got a letter from her. Short, handwritten. Dad, I'm sorry, I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope someday you'll talk to me again. Lisa. I folded it carefully and put it inside Martha's old recipe box, where I keep things too important to throw away and too painful to look at. Maybe one day I'll answer her. Maybe I won't. I'm an old man. I've learned that not all stories end the way you want them to. Some end the way they have to. And this one ended with me sitting at my own kitchen table in my own house, drinking my own coffee, knowing the world can still break you. But you can still stand back up. Even at 79. Even when it's your own blood who knocks you down. Because I remembered everything. And in the end, that saved me.